I'm going to call this meeting to order. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Irvin.
Here.
Counselor Hein. Counselor Lammerman.
Here.
Counselor Merity.
Here.
Counselor Settlemeyer.
Here.
Counselor Wilson.
Here.
Mayor Soulsby.
Here. The City Council for Cottage Grove will now meet in executive session held pursuant to ORS 192.6602F, which allows the council to meet in executive session to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session and are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. Council will now recess to the alternate room at the end of the executive session. Council will return to the council chambers to reconvene the regular council meeting. We will now recess. Oh. There's that.
You can if you want.
You ready now, Mindy? I have 7:37. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Irvin.
Here.
Counselor Hein. Here. Counselor Lammerman.
Here.
Counselor Merity.
Here.
Counselor Settlemeyer.
Here.
Counselor Wilson.
Here.
Mayor Soulsby.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Tonight we have a presentation, Public Safety Telecommunications Week Proclamation. Public Safety Telecommunications Week, whereas the professional public safety telecommunicator is the vital link between the citizen or victim and the public safety provider who will respond to assist and may apprehend a criminal, save their possessions from fire, save their life or the life of a loved one. And whereas hundreds of dedicated telecommunicators daily serve the citizens of Oregon by answering their requests for law enforcement, fire, and emergency medical services by dispatching the appropriate assistance as quickly as possible. And whereas Cottage Grove maintains South Lane 911 and our telecommunicators serve the citizens of Cottage Grove and surrounding areas by answering their requests for law enforcement, fire and emergency medical services by dispatching the appropriate assistance quickly as possible. And whereas the professional telecommunicators of South Lane 911 have shown amazing dedication and loyalty recently in the midst of many challenges. And whereas in 1994, President William J. Clinton signed Presidential Proclamation 667, declaring the second full week of April as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week as a time to celebrate and thank telecommunications personnel across the nation who serve our communities, citizens, and public safety personnel 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, therefore, I, Candace Soulsby, Mayor of City of Cottage Grove, Oregon, do hereby proclaim April 13th through the 19th, 2025 to be Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in Cottage Grove and encourage all citizens to join in the observance and show appreciation to their South Lane 911 telecommunicators and all telecommunicators. I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the city of Cottage Grove, Oregon to be affixed this 14th day of April 2025. Items to be added to the agenda. I see none.
Mayor,
Oh, Chief.
sorry. Yeah, so I just wanted to thank you for the proclamation and then also just let you know that we have two of our telecommunicators here in the audience tonight. So if you're willing, if we could get a picture of you and our telecommunicators with the proclamation. And then also one of our dispatchers would like to say just a few words.
I'd be honored.
Thank you.
Many dedicated professionals who work behind the scenes that plays a critical role. Every small matter, from the smallest concern to the most urgent life threat. And I proud to be a voice people can rely on who will hope to be serving our community in this way of this job. It's our responsibility and carry the pride and compassion. Thank you to all who support and support us in this effort.
Officer Bonnier. Congratulations.
Thank you for all you do. Thank you so much. Chief. Appearance of interested citizens. This is a time for citizen comment. The council will first take comments addressing items not listed on the agenda for a maximum of 30 minutes. The council will then take comments addressing action items on the agenda for a maximum of 30 minutes. Individual speakers must be recognized by the presiding officer, provide their names, identify whether they are city resident, and if so, their ward. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less with council approval. Comments regarding any matter scheduled for a public hearing may be provided only during that hearing. The council will not make any decisions based on public comment. However, staff and council may choose to ask questions or comment following the conclusion of citizen comments. Suzanne Reynolds.
Mayor, Council, thank you. Is it on?
You see a red
Yeah.
light.
It's on.
Yeah, there's a red.
Just, yeah,
This
speaking.
doesn't sound productive. So I was at I don't even know what y'all are calling it now, the camp behind Dairy Mart last week, Chief? Yes, approximately. I'm curious as to where's the line where someone was incarcerated, their belongings were left. Within hours of incarceration, their belongings are now belongs to the city and were put in a dumpster, not taken to where when he was released, he or she, sorry, was released, could come and retrieve their belongings. And what is the dumpster designated for specifically for the purpose of the people that are accessing and abiding by as much as they can the rules and regulations of said camp?
Chief, would you like to comment?
So, yeah, if somebody's taken into custody, I guess is what we're talking about here. If there are personal belongings that are identifiable and we know that they are personal belongings of some sort of utility or value, I believe is the legal term that we look at, then those items are kept, stored, usually over with our property evidence area. So the stuff is stored. When they get out, they can come back and retrieve that property. So if there's abandoned property or there's property that is of no utility, then that property can be disposed of, or if there's no owner that can be determined. So
I was just, because stuff got taken and I was there, I was there. I cleaned up. The dumpster that particular day was overflowing. There's garbage all outside of it. Within 10 minutes of them leaving, here come vehicles. And they're dumping their garbage that is in that dumpster and all around that dumpster, from what I've witnessed, is not solely from maybe 15 people that access the camp now. I'm not condoning behavior. I'm just curious, like, how do we keep that? That's taking so many man hours from the police department. It's costing the city money unnecessarily. There's people like myself that are willing to go there and maintain the trash, like keep it.
Thank you,
confined.
Suzanne. I do think that that's the city's intention, is that it is specifically for that camp. And I'm sure that people abuse it. And Chief,
Yeah.
did you have anything else?
Yeah, Mayor, thank you, Council. I'll just add that I would say between the police department and the public works department, I feel like we've done, I'll just say, an excellent job. It's been a hard task. We're constantly working together. There was a day that I was there when I spoke to you. I was out there with gloves on, picking stuff up. So, I mean, I get it. We're all trying to pitch in and do what we can. As far as who's using the dumpster and who's not, I don't know. But I do know that we have a process in place that when it's full, we can call, they'll empty it, they bring it back, like I said, law enforcement, public works, we're all monitoring that as best we can with the resources that we have. And from where we were, less than a year ago, I would say that we've made some pretty significant improvements. So, far from perfect, but we're paying attention to it, and we're being very diligent in what we do out there.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you.
All right, public hearings. I see none. Before I go to the consent agenda, Ms. Roberts.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to make you aware of a couple changes that I've made to the minutes since the draft versions were sent out on the March 24th, 2025 City Council meeting on page 5. I added a sentence right before concerns of council indicating that City Attorney Carrie Conley left at that time. And if you read before that, you'll see her report was given earlier in the meeting rather than at the typical time. On page 4, I changed a verb tense and also fixed some spacing and layout issues. So when you're hopefully approving the consent agenda and the 7 sets of minutes, you'll take that into consideration that those changes were made.
Consent agenda?
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciation to the recorder
Mhm.
and move that the council approve the consent agenda.
We have,
as amended.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion with a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Resolutions and ordinances. Item A, resolution establishing appropriations within the general fund for an expenditure of an unforeseen specific purpose grant from Oregon Community Trees. OC 2405, Associate Planner Lenny Crow.
Good evening, Mayor. We received a grant in the amount of $450 from Oregon Community Trees for the purpose of media marketing and promotion of our Arbor Tree events. And in order to lawfully spend the money, the city must comply with the requirements of local budget law. I will point out before staff recommendation that the budget line number that was put out Friday's agenda session is the previous one, so it is an updated number. The 76186 is the new one. That's the only change that has happened to the resolution. But at this time, staff does recommend adoption.
Any questions? The resolution number. Oh, you'll find it. We're gonna go over that. Well, it's because you owe us one. It's because you owe us one.
Thank you for your patience. Sorry about that. The resolution number will be 2165.
2165.
Where was he right?
Counselor Urban. He was close. He said 66.
Council adopt resolution 2165. Establishing appropriations within the general fund for the expenditure of unforeseen specific purpose grant from Oregon Community Trees in the amount of $450.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a motion with a second. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Lammerman.
Here, aye. What am I saying here? Aye, okay, sorry.
Counselor Sotomayor.
Yes.
Counselor Wilson.
Yes.
Counselor Merida.
Aye.
Counselor Hink. Oh, Counselor Irvin and Mayor Solsby.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Crowe. Business from the City Council. Council goal discussion, SSW Facilitator Ashley Sanoff. Can you hear us, Ashley? There you are.
Yes, I can. I'm here. Before I begin, city manager or city recorder, do you want to say anything before we kick things off?
Well, good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. I think everybody knows Ashley, who is a facilitator for the city council retreat. And what we'll be doing this evening is Ashley will be reviewing the goals and objectives that the council established for 2025, 2026 fiscal year, and looking also at some of the other things that the council discussed at the retreat. So with that, turn it over to Ashley.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, City Manager, and good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you so much for welcoming me back. Looking forward to continuing the work we began at the council retreat back in March to develop the council goals for the 2025-2026 fiscal year. And really the purpose of tonight is to reconnect. So it's been, I think, a month and a week exactly since we met at the council retreat to begin the work of developing those council goals. And so since we met on March 8th, a lot of work has happened with staff to further refine those goals and objectives to prepare for this discussion tonight, to present those updates to you. And with the purpose tonight to gain further clarity and make any additional refinements to the goals themselves or the supporting actions to prepare them for your adoption at a subsequent meeting. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because I have a presentation to go through with you. All right, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. All right, well, let's just start where we began this process with just a little bit of background information. So looking at our timeline, we really began this process in January with outreach interviews with the city council and staff, where we talked about gathering input for the retreat and desired outcomes for that time together, and started to explore the context and the challenges and opportunities and needs and desires of the community and council going into this goal setting session. And then on March 8th, we met together, gathered together, focused on these 3 retreat outcomes to one, develop the goals to guide both the council and the organization in the 2025-2026 fiscal year. In order to do this well, we built a shared understanding of the organization and communities, like the current context of what's going on in the community and in the organization to inform that goal development process. And then, of course, underpinning all of this is building a strong, cohesive team amongst the council and staff to advance the goals together. And so that's really what we focused on at the March 8th retreat. And then following, and at that retreat, we honed in on what the desired outcomes of council would be. So after we explored the current context of what's happening in the community, we looked at technology factors, and we looked at things happening in the organization and department updates. We looked at community needs and trends, and we talked about housing and the economy and all sorts of topics. We gathered themes from that discussion, and then we broke into small groups, and we talked about what does success look like in all of these areas? What's our desired outcomes? What do we hope to set as a team and to guide the policy of the organization over the next year? And then as a group, we got back together and we talked about, okay, if this is the destination where we're going in each of these key theme areas, what are some potential ways that could advance us, getting to that destination? And so we talked about certain actions that would get us there. And then on the 14th, we met with the leadership team and we refined those desired outcomes into different goal areas that we're going to be presenting to you tonight, and then also refined the language from those different ideas and proposals that were developed together as part of the city council retreat, and did some cleanup of language to have a clear list of supporting objectives for each goal area. And also part of that work at the leadership team retreat was the opportunity for staff to identify any current or planned work that the city already has plans for, or is work underway that is supporting those desired outcomes and goals of council. And so those are being brought to you for your consideration tonight. And then, of course, we're here on the 14th to discuss those refined council goals and objectives, and then prepare for adoption. And so all of this work resulting in 5 council goal areas, which we'll share with you, with a total of 36 supporting objectives. And then 1 council vision statement, which the goal here of a council vision statement is to tie all of the goals and the work together into one clear statement that really communicates what are we focusing on this year, what are our priorities, and then 5 council team values. And so this stems from the discussion and the work that we did in the retreat as well, in terms of, all right, if these are our goals and this is what we're working on together as a team, these values that we hold, this is our shared commitment to one another of how we're going to work together amongst council and council with staff to advance these goals together for the benefit of the Cottage Grove community. And so here's just, remember, we looked at the context, and here's just a refresher of our discussion where we talked about different theme areas, and we mapped out what our desired outcomes were in those specific various actions to help get us there. And so that was the process that we went on. And so now we can present to you how we cleaned up all of this work that we did together and organized it into the 5 council goals and the supporting objectives. And so I'll go through the way that the process will look for tonight. I'll share just upfront what all 5 of the goals are. And then after that, we'll go into each goal area and look at the supporting objectives for each one. And that's where we'll have an opportunity to have discussion to see if any further refinements need to be made, if there's clarity that is needed to provide further understanding or council's policy direction to staff, because remember, the council goals and these supporting actions, they're really directing the work of staff over the next year. And then also I want to refer you back to our guidelines for success, so we can use those tonight as well. And so I won't go through all of them, but remember, we talked about assuming goodwill and having open and respectful communication. We also had this agreement to stay in our lane when it comes to our role as a city. Thinking about that was important to this group. And then of course, this is especially relevant to this discussion, that the council goals, these are the council goals, and they will move forward with either consensus of council or majority of council. So I'll be checking in throughout the presentation and discussion to make sure that we have either consensus or majority on all of these items, so that there's unity behind these goals. And when you go to adopt them, there's the unity and clarity, because that's what provides that clarity and direction to staff so that they can implement the goals that you're setting. So the 5 council goals, where we landed, we took all of those themes of infrastructure and public safety and community engagement and housing and the economy. We talked a lot about different topics, and this is how we organized all of those desired outcomes into these 5 goal areas. And so we have goal statements for each of these, but I want to show you upfront what those are here. So the first one is community engagement and trust. Goal number 2, safe and thriving community. Goal number 3, financial sustainability. Goal number 4, community growth. And then goal number 5, recreation. So let's go in. We have a goal statement for each of these areas. So, and it helps to explain what items fall under each of these categories too. And then that'll become more clear as we look at this, the supporting actions as well. So under community engagement and trust, the goal statement: build community trust and engagement by enhancing communication, increasing transparency, and expanding opportunities for public participation in city government. Goal 2, safe and thriving community: foster a safe and thriving community by enhancing public safety, improving city infrastructure, and promoting community pride through engagement and beautification efforts. Goal number 3 of financial sustainability: ensure a financially sustainable future by evaluating funding strategies, maintaining service levels, and engaging the community in fiscal decision-making. Goal number 4, community growth: cultivate a vibrant and resilient economy by attracting businesses, expanding development opportunities, revitalizing key areas, increasing tourism, and promoting accessible housing solutions. And then finally, recreation to promote a healthy and active community by expanding recreational opportunities, enhancing connectivity, and creating engaging spaces for youth. So those are the 5 goal areas. So let's go into the first goal area, and I'll show you the supporting actions, and then we can have some discussion at the end of each goal area to provide additional clarity and if there's any questions from council at that time. So under community engagement and trust in this goal area, there were 7 actions or objectives that were identified or developed at the council retreat. And then this 8th one is a proposed addition. So this one's only going to get added to the list if there's consensus or majority of council to do so. But this was an item that was added or suggested by staff from the leadership team retreat. So again, identifying any work that's currently underway or planned that the city is already doing that is advancing the outcomes of community engagement and trust. And so, so I'll get to the eighth one in a minute, but just because it was in red, I wanted to make sure that explained why one of them was in red. And with this goal statement, I read the goal statement, but the outcomes that were identified for community engagement and trust were really about, increasing community trust, having positive feedback and support from the community, making sure that the community feels involved in the process of decision making, and increased public participation in city government. So those are the outcomes that we're driving towards with these specific supporting objectives. So increase and improve communication about upcoming city council meeting topics, increase subscribers to city communication tools. So that was like, the Text My Gov, the Friday Update email, social media, other tools. 3, increase promotion of city events and operations. So there are a lot of great ideas came around this, around screens, potential screens up at the community center, or a new reader board, or partnership with community organizations to share happenings and operations of the city, to engage with the community, and then lots of other ideas as well. 1.4, develop and share educational materials on civics, city government operations, structure of that nature. 1.5, increase in-person community engagement opportunities, so town halls and other opportunities of the like. 1.6, restart the youth advisory committee. 1.7, proactively share positive outcomes of city projects and programs. So again, sharing the work that the city is doing. And then this proposed addition is to complete improvements to city website to improve the user experience and availability of information. So that work is currently underway. We didn't identify it as, or it didn't come up in the retreat, but later staff, as we were discussing ways to advance these desired outcomes that were developed by councils, like, oh, well, we're, cities already undergoing the city website update process. So it might be worth having it added. But I'll just pause there and check in with the council to see if there are any questions specifically about this goal for community engagement and trust. If there's any of these supporting objectives that you have potential refinements or adjustments to, or anything that you think needs further clarity to reflect your direction to staff.
Councillor Urban.
Thank you, Mayor. I like council or staff's suggestion on the improvements to the website, and mention perhaps of a community calendar of events, coordination with chamber and other folks being on that list. I see reader board, I see, screens, website information, but mention of, cohesive calendar would be, I think, a welcome addition.
Councillor Settlemeyer.
At item 1.5, the idea of community engagement is something I really think is wonderful to highlight a little bit more than just inviting people to come and talk with us. I hope that we can find things where people feel strongly about things and we can work together and do something. So I hope we could add something about volunteer activities there, or if someone has a better way of saying, let's not just talk, let's work.
Anyone else? Counselor Merryday.
With goal 1.3, I would like to see added in resiliency and communication during emergency events. So we lacked a way to communicate. I know that we had talked about either mobile reading boards or sandwich boards that could be put out. And I do know that we are planning to have the reader board restored in the Bohemia Park. So emergency resilience with communication or something to that effect.
Anyone else? All right. That looks great. You can move
Okay,
on.
great. All right. So, thank you, Mayor. I took notes to capture those comments. So adding perhaps a community calendar to shared community calendar to 1.2. Under 1.3, adding resiliency and communications, especially for emergency events such as mobile reader boards, sandwich boards, and then 1.5, some sort of refinement to the language that reflects more than just engagement beyond town hall. So more robust engagement or abilities to not just be talked at or a one-way communication, but maybe some two-way communication or working together. So we can work on some language that reflects those changes.
Counselor Urban.
Yeah, thank you. On that last point on 1.5, coordination of volunteerism and I would say education opportunities for city-related matters.
And I would just like to point out to the constituents that are here that trust in your elected officials was really important to us. So that's why you see it up there. And we want to really instill that again. Counselor Merryday.
Thank you, Mayor. Could we put I know with the city website, it does need a major overhaul, but could the calendar end up as part of that goal too, the 1.8?
So I think this came up, the idea of the shared calendar did come up in the staff retreat, just in terms of the feasibility and implementation. And so they captured the calendar in the notes section and thinking about how, and then leaving a little more flexibility into how that shared calendar implementation would happen, because it tends to be a little bit tricky with shared calendars with different organizations. So thinking about that, maybe the chamber or the city or other organizations, like who is managing that calendar, because it can be challenging to maintain dates. And so like the last thing that you want to do is have, for example, the calendar have like a tournament that's happening or some sort of, public event that's happening, and have the city managing that, and then have that be canceled. But then that, because that event is being hosted by a different organization, if that information doesn't get to the city to update it, then, community members are coming out, they're looking for the baseball tournament or the play or whatever the event may be. And then it can be a little bit challenging. And so the recommendation was to not specifically have the shared calendar in the language of the goals specifically, but in the notes for implementation to explore that. And I think that's how it came through with see what's in 1.3, so partnership with community organizations. So that implies working on a shared calendar and just figuring out which organization is the right organization to own that calendar, and have further exploration, but not being tied too closely to who's going to be managing it and having that level of like minutia in the goals.
Thank you.
All right. So before we move forward, I'll just check in with those, we heard about a few proposals from council for little, minor refinements. I just want to check in with the group that there's either consensus or majority to make those adjustments. And I'll,
Consensus? Yes, we have a consensus.
wonderful. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'll have to rely on you to have, because everyone's so small on my screen, so I can't quite see it. So, all right. And then there's consensus for this 1.8 as well, just to confirm?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, well, let's move on to goal number 2, which is the safe and thriving community goal. And so just before we go into the outcome, before we go into the objectives, excuse me, just thinking about the specific outcomes that this goal is focused on. So focusing on, we talked about improved road conditions, having a responsive and reliable public safety and a feeling of safety in the community, and having accountability, and that also showing up as accountability for crimes, and also having an attractive community. So this safe and thriving community tried to grab all of those outcomes together to group them into this goal of safe and thriving community. And again, the statement is, fostering a safe and thriving community by enhancing public safety, improving city infrastructure, and promoting community pride through engagement and beautification efforts. And so this work together resulted in 7 actions from the retreat, with 2 proposed additions that came from the leadership team retreat. So 2.1, improved condition of the streets. So for example, the pavement condition index and maintenance and repairs. Continue to pursue funding options for street improvements. 3, conduct a community cleanup event. 2.4, create a marketing campaign slogan to encourage community pride and cleanup efforts. 2.5, increase the presence and enforcement of public safety in the community. 2.6, conduct public safety community engagement events. 2.7, work with community partners to evaluate misdemeanor prosecutions. And then the 2 proposed additions were to complete the police department accreditation process, which is currently underway, and to complete the community center HVAC and backup generator resiliency hub project. So any comments on these objectives? Anyone that need further refinement to the language or clarity to
Counselor
align with
Sotomayor.
council's direction? Yes.
Can you please explain 2.6 and 2.7 to me?
2.6, yes. So starting with the public safety community engagement events, this tied in with we had this discussion. It came up in the community trust goal, but then we also talked about it more as a group when we were talking about public safety in general, just around what generates a feeling of safety in the community. And the group had a discussion around having those community events, so such as like coffee with a cop came up, shop with a cop, kindness 911, National Night Out. The police department is participating in a reading program, and we had discussions around that. So so 2.6 is really focusing on like just continuing to prioritize those community engagement efforts from the police department. And did you say 2.7? Yes. Okay. 2.7. This was focused around the desire of council to have increased accountability for crimes. And so we talked about the current work that is underway between the police department and the county to evaluate these prosecutions. And perhaps the police chief would like to weigh in here and provide a little bit more context into what this this partnership or this process is, the status of this work.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So what we're looking at right now is just reviewing all of our processes, right? And a lot of this goes back to when the jail was closed and operating in municipal court, and how we can still do that and hold people accountable. So we're reviewing all of our processes, including our partnership with the district attorney's office to look at some of the more egregious cases that are misdemeanors that normally wouldn't go to the district attorney's office or the circuit court for prosecution. We kind of have a plan in place for how that's working now. We're also exploring opportunities to partner with potentially the Lane County Sheriff's Office and their corrections department to help us be able to arraign people on misdemeanor charges, potentially at the Lane County Jail, using a model that's similar to what the city of Eugene is doing. So, but that's very early in the process. We've had one meeting, and myself and our city prosecutor, Ryan Baker, and also Judge Fisher, we made a trip up to Eugene and met with the team there at the sheriff's office to kind of talk about what that would look like. There's a lot of moving parts to that and a lot of processes. So it's something that's kind of ongoing. It's not anything that we're ready to kind of sign on the dotted line and say we've done this, but it's something that we're exploring as an option to kind of help us out. So that's where we're at with all of that right now. So.
Thank you, Chief. Anyone else? Councilor Merryday.
So I don't have the advantage to look ahead to see what the other areas are. But I do know that it seems every city council meeting for the past 4 or 5, there's been things addressing unhoused members of our community, and either from members of the public or from council members. And I'm just wondering if this falls anywhere in our goals to continue to refine the way we interact with unhoused in the community.
Yes, thank you, Counselor. The outcome, we captured the outcome around housing availability and accessibility under goal number 4, community growth. And so we can discuss how that showed up in goal number 4, but then we can also come back, and when we get there, we can revisit if it needs to, if there is consensus or majority from the council to have a goal around that, whether it should belong in goal 2 for a safe and thriving community with these outcomes, or if it fits more under goal number 4, which is the community growth goal, which is currently includes housing.
Councilor Urban.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a similar question. Wasn't sure if we'd see it later. And that because I could see where things would fit in either or both. But the mention of targeting or working to attract more as an economic development kind of strategy, living wage jobs, getting jobs here in the community, seeking as a goal to increase our median income, make a transfer of dependent on public support to not as a goal, help to facilitate that by providing more opportunities. And then I was thinking it maybe would be in the notes on 2.5, but the idea of a neighborhood watch kind of program where educational opportunities for folks to engage in and addressing, and this may be under maybe even under 2.4, but addressing the loitering is what comes to mind, but different things that detract from a thriving, safe community that can grow. So I'm not sure where they would be placed, but maybe they're addressed, but just so they're on the table.
Thank you, Counselor. I think there were three things that I heard captured there. The first one was around economy, and that building a strong economy really falls under that goal number 4 of community growth. It's cultivating a vibrant and resilient economy by attracting businesses, expanding development opportunities, revitalizing key areas, increasing tourism, and promoting accessible housing solutions. So similar to Councilor Merriday's comment, let's capture those when we get to goal 4. And I'll also make a note too. And then if we need to talk about any proposals for additional goals around economy, we can do that at that time. other comment around the neighborhood watch program. Let's see, for 2.5, around increasing presence and enforcement of public safety and community. I think the idea here is that by keeping it a little more broad under 2.5, we're focusing on the outcomes that you want to see in the community. And so thinking about if we the consensus of the team was around having a responsive and reliable public safety and having a feeling of safety and having accountability for crimes. Those were the outcomes that we determined from council, and then that we were, building these particular actions around. And so this 2.5, increasing presence or enforcement of public safety and community, that's focused on the outcome of what council would like to see, and then it allows staff the flexibility of implementation based on best practices and expertise in the field, and like kind of what's based on like their experiences, practitioners in their field of public safety, in terms of like what's the best method to be able to get to those outcomes. And so that's why neighborhood watch didn't specifically come up in the language there. But that being said, if there is a consensus or majority of the group that it's, we need to add specifically a neighborhood watch in that line item, we can have that discussion. I would just need to make sure that there's a consensus or majority to add that.
Counselor Wilson.
Yeah, the neighborhood watch program, I think actually might fit better under 2.6 as educating the public with the engagement events as to what is a neighborhood watch, how to organize one, that type of a situation. I think that might be a better place to put it.
All right, thank you, Counselor. And one other thing too, and perhaps the police chief would like to weigh in on this too, but I believe the neighborhood watch program is no longer an active program. I think it's been replaced or been updated with other like methods that have been proven to be more effective. And so I think that was part of it too. So a hesitancy to put in a specific language around a neighborhood watch program that like is no longer an actively sponsored program, and if there's other methods. So I'm not sure, Chief, if you'd like to provide any additional comments.
Mayor, there's not really much more to add. I think she kind of covered it. So, but yeah, that's kind of where we're at with that. So, but it does, it does kind of lend the opportunities to do more under the, community, public safety, community engagement. There's more opportunities for us to do that. And we've talked about some things that are, kind of in the future for us and what that's going to look like. So, as we continue to build out our team and our leadership team, what we want to do is we check off some of these big ticket items that are already up there. But we're doing a lot right now in the community engagement area. So, but there's more we can do, and we'll bite off a little bit more when we're able to. So.
I do think that's a good suggestion, though, to put it under engagement and events, because then we don't have to get specific. It's part of it. Councilor Merriday.
Yeah, I know a very successful program in a former community I lived with is that a neighborhood could declare a block party. They could block off the street with a permit and get to know their neighbors. And by doing so, then everybody's naturally looking out for each other. And it was very successful in that community. And it
Thank
would
you,
certainly
Counselor.
engage.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the idea behind the National Night Out. Those are that's like it's like a block party model. And so what I'm hearing is perhaps we could update the language under 2.6, maybe instead of conduct public safety community engagement events, maybe we refine it to conduct public safety community engagement and education events, so that it provides that education component. And then we can include like, any sort of like block parties, or if there's an updated version of like a neighborhood watch program, we can add that in the context of the notes, and to help guide staff's implementation. And that way it allows them to have a little bit of a little more flexibility to use the methods that are going to be most effective and best practices. Is there consensus to to put that in the comments? And do we want to add education into the language of 2.6?
Do we have consensus? Yes. Yes, we do.
Okay. All right. Okay, and then is there consensus to add 2.8 and 2.9 into the goals?
Consensus? Counselor Irvin?
Say generally, yes, 2.9, but was that dependent on a
Grant?
that is up in the air?
Mr. Stewart or
I
Mr.
think-
Sarwin?
Well, I think what we're recognizing is that yes, originally we did apply for grant funds to pay for this project. But if those grant funds do not materialize, that this is still an important project that we need to complete.
Do we have a consensus?
Another point of
Oh,
clarification. These are
Counselor.
annual, right? So this would mean that we'd have to find funding in this budget if the grant doesn't go through to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, again, we've applied for a grant, that grant's on hold at this point. We just want to recognize that it's important that we continue to pursue funds for this project, whether that's additional grant funds or a discussion for the budget committee.
And Counselor brings up a good point, and it's a good opportunity to share that now, that part of this goal development process and the goal setting process, when we think about when we, after adoption and moving into implementation, staff is working through an action plan, which is really just a giant spreadsheet of all of your goals that outlines the outcomes and the specific actions. And then they've gone through and identified a status for each of these specific objectives, assigned a timeline to those based on current work underway, and also assigned a lead department for implementation. And so not all of these objectives are expected to be completed within the next year, because by nature, some of this work it just has a longer horizon. And so some of them are like, oh, we're going to accomplish it in year one. Others are, more of a year two. And also something that I will share with the goal setting process, the idea is that on a regular basis, whether it's annually or every 2 years, once you do set your goals, it's an opportunity to have at a future council retreat to refine your goals and continue to update them. And so it's an opportunity to come back together as a team, take a look back at the last year or two, whatever the cadence has been, identify, okay, what's been completed from our goals that we can mark as complete and celebrate, mark that off the list. What refinements do we need to make? And so say this community center HVAC, it's dependent on grant funding, it's on the list, it's communicating to the organization and the community that this is one of your priorities and that you're going to continue to direct staff to try to find funding to do this work. And then you check in a year or two and see, okay, were we able to get funding? Do we need to maybe adjust our course? But this just identifies it as a priority of council at this time. Any other comments on goal 2?
Looks like we have a consensus.
All right, wonderful. Okay, let's move on to goal 3, which is financial sustainability. And again, let's start this conversation by really honing in on the outcomes that that council discussed in the retreat. So the outcomes for financial sustainability are really around the financial health for the organization, and then with the product of that, or the result of that, of being able to maintain the current level of services to the community. And so those are the 2 outcomes that we're driving toward with this goal and these items. And so under financial sustainability, the statement is, ensure a financially sustainable future by evaluating funding strategies, maintaining service levels, and engaging the community in fiscal decision making. And one comment that I will make, and you may have picked up on this, is that some of these goals, there's natural intersections or where they might overlap. So this, our goal, first goal of community engagement and trust, we saw, a little bit of that, community engagement and trust building in the previous goal with, the community engagement events through public safety. We're also seeing that show up here too under financial sustainability, when we're thinking about, engaging the community in fiscal decision making. And so that's continuing that engagement and that trust. So just want to make sure that comment that some of these, there's those natural intersections that you find, and it just shows the interrelatedness of these goals together. So without further ado, let's go through these actions. 3.1, completing the utility rate study. 3.2, research and present general fund funding options for public safety in the library to maintain service levels for city operations across the board. 3.3 and 3.4 and 3.5, these are proposed additions from the leadership team and staff. That thinking about, okay, what's current work that's happening or that we are already planning for, and that's supporting these desired outcomes of financial health and sustainability and maintaining service levels to our community. So conducting community engagement on the desired level of service, the cost of providing city services and funding options. 3.4, presenting a balanced city budget aimed at maintaining the current level of for city services to the community. And 3.5, explore all options for additional funding to maintain core city services to the community. So any questions or comments around these, and then we'll specifically around these additions too? If there are any refinements or areas of clarification that are needed?
Councilor Irvin.
Thank you, Mayor. On 3.4, I think it's in contradiction with one of our first stated goals regarding road conditions, that we don't want to just maintain the current conditions of a road building and service. We actually want to increase that. So maybe just noting that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, other comments? Does that feel like that statement feels in conflict with that earlier goal around road conditions?
Could we add excluding roads? Since it's already has its own goal.
Councilor Settler.
Yeah, actually, I had kind of a challenge with a couple of the qualifiers up there, I think is the right term. 3.4, when it says aimed at maintaining, when we've talked about our budget, we've got to balance what is this is our transparency time. What can we do with what we have, and what is the community telling us, and what are we able to do? I think if we are going in with a goal of maintaining, that isn't very realistic. Kind of like up in 3.2, it feels like maintain isn't the right word. Some word like determine the service levels for there in a very real, transparent way where we're interacting with everybody who is there. I don't feel comfortable with this, with a lot of maintain and yeah, it just doesn't seem like a reasonable goal.
I would actually take it one step further and say that these are goals. So I would actually like it to say options for public safety and library to improve service levels for city operations. If we're doing that, then roads. Counselor.
And I don't know if it's in the goals that this fits, but I know our budget policy that we also have to set for reserves for balances that roll over. But we needed to address those last budget cycle. We need to address them again coming up. But I think as a council that goes into having a healthy reserve balance with all of these other goals. But yeah, we want to increase the level of service. I agree. I think that's addressed in point 4 that we're going to get to, where we want to raise the opportunities and standards. So they pair together. Improved, efficient operations, better service, better budget policy.
Counselor Hink.
My only issue with these statements was maintain. I think that we should be looking at improving or raising the bar. Maintain to me means status quo, and that might not be where we want to be.
Although I do understand the reasoning that we're in a budget crisis a bit, and so I can understand having that feeling, but I would also say that these are goals and we should be shooting for higher. Counselor Merryday.
Well, I do like very much that it's mentioned a couple of times, seek additional funding, because the reason we are in this situation is that our property tax is on a flat curve and our costs are vastly exceeding that ability. So the only way that we can meet to the goal of increasing the quality of our service, or even maintaining a quality of service, is to add additional revenues. Otherwise, we're going to be forced to eliminate or cut. You know, you can't have it both ways. It's got to, if it's not building enough with our current income levels, then we have to either seek additional funding or reduce our services. So, yeah, I like to see that it's in there multiple times, that, yeah, we've got to find more ways to pay for what we need, including roads.
Thank you for those comments, Council. I think what I'm hearing is the commonality was there's a desire to increase the level of services to the community, not just maintain them. And perhaps city manager could weigh in here too. But I believe with the intention here behind these statements around 3.3 and 3.4 and 3.5 is with the reality that they're even passing a balanced budget is going to be a significant effort this budget cycle to maintain what the city currently has. So that feels that just alone, we're not thinking about increasing level of services, but just with the current financial condition of the city, just being able to maintain without facing other like budget cuts to reduce staffing or level of services that would be felt by the community. And so just trying to be realistic in terms of where, what the current financial condition of the city is. And so thinking with 3.3, we can conduct that community engagement on what is that desired level of service, and education around what the cost is to provide that level of service, and then exploring various funding options or mechanisms that might get you to that desired level, and then really focusing on presenting a balanced budget. But city manager, I don't know if you would like to weigh in more and provide a little bit more context behind these proposed additions.
Sure. Just a little bit of context from the leadership team's discussion. Now, we kind of saw it as a two-step process, and I don't know whether we've completely captured it or not, but, a first step is we want to maintain the current level of service. But as a second step, and this is somewhat more aspirational, we want to improve the level of service, and recognizing the fact that could require additional funding, and including that in the discussion. Absolutely, we want to improve the level of service. In areas, we've talked specifically about police and libraries. What I want to say to the community is we heard you, that these are very important services to you, and you do want to see us increase our level of service. And, the chief and I will actually be bringing you some options specific to the police department in the coming weeks and in future council meetings. So, I think we attempted to capture everything that we've heard from the council this evening. And whether we did that or not, I'll leave to people that are better at wording these things than I am. But that certainly was our intent.
Is there,
Yes.
oh, go ahead.
What I'm hearing there is, I agree with, it's aspirational to say maintain when you face a budget like we are. And a lot of times you have to actually cut it for a time to rebound. So if that's the intent, that for the short term, we're scraping everything together to maintain right now until we can implement the other strategies that would lead to the growth, then I understand that. And I do understand that to be aspirational.
One
Addressing the improvement, maybe we can add to this is for the short term. The long term is to build the sustainable funding models, but maybe that's captured already.
One option to consider is changing the language under 3.5. So instead of having explore all options for additional funding to maintain core city services to the community, you could reword that to explore all options for additional funding to maintain and or improve. And so that leaves, and then that connects with this engagement, community engagement and community input on their desired service levels. So those two kind of tie into each other. I don't know how council feels about that adjustment.
I like it. Counselor Wilson.
That's actually what I was just about to say. Would be to just reword it as to maintain and or improve.
Okay.
Just adding that language gives us the goal of, if we are able to raise additional funds or figure out different funding options, we're at least maintaining, but our goal is to improve. So as a goal setting objective, having the wording of maintain and or improve at least gives us that.
Counselor Settlemyer.
And I'm sorry, I can't look back at one where we talk about trust and something about transparency with what we're doing with our finances seems like a logical thing. Did we mention it in number? I mean, I'm sorry.
I can go back to number one.
Well, okay.
Or are we just wanting to, I don't think there's specifically, I think it's more around, to your point, Counselor, it's around the intentionality or the outcomes behind it. And so we could specifically add an outcome under this financial sustainability goal around, transparency to the community, and perhaps add, I'm not sure if you have a particular objective in mind where you'd like to see it added or to all of them.
Transparency.
Could I just suggest 3.4 where we're talking about presenting a balanced budget? If we'd like to add the term, presenting a balanced budget, city budget in a transparent manner, which essentially is what the state law requires.
How does council feel about that proposal for that refinement?
Counselor Urban.
Just thinking back to the pain points from previous budget cycles and feedback, and that's the limited amount of time to digest a budget, to ask questions. So present a budget in a timely manner. I guess we should define that for a goal, but with sufficient amount of time for public engagement. But that would be a goal that would directly address what's been an issue in the past.
Counselor Sotomayor.
And maybe just where does the word transparency or that happen? And maybe that if we're looking at 3.4, if we talk about a transparently balanced city budget, rather than the idea of the budget being presented very clearly and tell everybody after the process, like you say, in a very limited timeline, people see it. I don't know. I've never been a part of that budget cycle, but where is the transparency that you say feels like it's clumbed in?
No, I would say it's been a very transparent process. Apart from the amount of time that people have to look in, which is an aspect of transparency prior to decision. So it's really just addressing that adequate amount of time for robust community engagement on the budget and education prior to adoption.
For clarification for new counselors, a lot of times we'll get the budget packet on a Friday and we're having our meeting on Monday. And so it's a lot to read over the weekend and a lot of people don't. And so that's what Counselor Irvin is referring to. Counselor Mary Day.
I was just going to follow through and say that. And oftentimes it's not even on a Friday. It's dropped off on your porch, if you're lucky, Saturday evening. And so, yeah, it's very complicated because a lot of the funds are spread out over a number, like just to operate the Public Works. How many different times is your position spread into other funds? And so it's it takes a lot of questionings. That poor Bert, I was down there constantly. My whole budget had sticky notes everywhere, and the meeting was on Tuesday, and so it's just whoa. So yeah, it would be great if we could get more breathing time and educational time for both ourselves and to explain to the public about it.
Counselor Lammerman.
So on 3.3, I'd like to see somewhere in there, I know the city won't like it too much, but I would like to see somewhere in there on engaging the community on ways to lower some of the rates also. And there's a lot of maintaining, improving and all that, but I know we have some wicked high utility rates, like with our commercial customers. Their base rates are like $300 a month, no matter what, no water used, no nothing. And if we're wanting to try to draw more businesses and industry, maybe we should look at, kind of lowering those.
That'd be part of our rate study goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be contained in the rate study goal.
That would be part of the rates.
I'm just seeing on the community engagement on desired service level, cost of providing city services.
Yeah, thank you, Counselor. The results of that utility rate study would be then, I would assume would then be shared with the community, and then would be part of that community engagement on cost of providing services.
My only issue with it is it seems like every time there's a rate study, it says we need to increase it. Every time. Just like a couple of years back, it said, oh, you need to keep increasing this much every year. That'll sustain you for the next 5 years, but then year 4, we're looking at having to increase it yet again.
It's a good point. We should probably define or put notes around a rate study. Because when I read it, I assumed what are cities, comparable cities to us paying? What are the different utilities that are available potentially in the area compared to each other? Like more than just what do we need, which is important, but what do we need to maintain services in the long run with capital improvements and everything, but comparables in educational.
Would the Public Works Director like to, I don't know, we're running a little bit behind with our time, but if it would be useful to the group, the Public Works Director can share, the purpose of a utility rate study.
Mr. Stewart.
Yeah, so in our utility rate, there's multiple pieces in there. So Mayor, Councilor Lammerman, when you talk about the commercial rate is high in the community, one of the reasons is that generally a commercial meter is larger than a standard home meter, and it's based on the amount of water that's provided. So case in point, You might have a facility that has multiple bathrooms and it needs a two-inch meter to operate it instead of a 3/4 inch meter. So there's a price difference there. Probably the largest difference in commercial rates versus residential rates is the storm drainage because it's based on your entire hard surface. So properties that have lots of parking spaces have a larger storm fee based on it. So that kind of explains maybe a little bit of the difference between commercial and residential. Now, when the rate study is what we've done this year, and in past years, we've engaged with a company called FCS that projects our rates out 5 years at a time, and it's based on a 3% increase generally for your daily operations of labor, materials, and services that it takes to operate it. That's the operation portion of the fee or the user fee that's paid. And then there is a fee based on improvements fees. Some of that has to do with debt that we've already taken out, and so we have to service that debt. And some of it has to do with capital improvement projects. So if we do a capital improvement projects, there's two ways that we can generate resources to pay for it. One of them is in the Improvement Reserve Fund, and the other is through the SDC when we collect system development charges. We can use that money only for increased capacity. So when we added capacity at the water treatment plant recently, we were able to use the SDC portion of our reserves to pay for that. And so when we put together our capital improvement project, that really drives the cost of both the reserves and the fees that we charge for the reserves and also the SDC fees. What really drives the day-to-day user rates that you pay for water, your user fee, is what does it cost to actually treat either drinking water, wastewater, or stormwater. And those are your day-to-day labor costs, your materials costs, and your service costs. FCS didn't recommend increasing the stormwater fee for 5 years, and we didn't increase the stormwater fee for 5 years. But they did make recommendations. There was a 3-year recommendation on water, and there was a 5-year recommendation of increasing for the wastewater portion of the fee. What we found is that when COVID impacted our community, and year 2, the materials costs skyrocketed, whether it was fuel, whether it was chemicals that we had to purchase. And so we had to make a midstream balance to keep our funds, able to service the debt. I don't know if I explained it, but in the rate study right now, we have purchased a software product and are using the firm Waterworth to project. The city council will receive a presentation during the budget that'll show you what our costs are, how they're increasing based on, employee costs, whether it's a 9% increase in your healthcare, whether it's a pretty sizable increase in PERS or cost of living increases. It'll also show you what we're experiencing for power increases. Pacific Power increased their rate 8% this past year. EPUDs, I don't know, I haven't been told that they're increasing, but there may be one come next January. And so those will be shown in this Waterworth program so that you'll be able to see how it's forecasted out, what type of rates are necessary for us to maintain the current level of service and meet our requirements under law to serve safe drinking water and safely treat our wastewater.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. We have a time check. Will everybody agree to another? Okay. Counselor Mary Day.
I don't think made it clear that these are enterprise funds, so they're designed to break even. They're not a moneymaker for the city. They're covering the cost. The consumers cover the cost of the services.
Yeah, Councilor Merity, thank you. So generally, what we charge the user is what it costs to provide that service. There's not an additional fee collected that can be utilized in another service not related to what that fee was collected for.
Thank you,
Great,
Mr.
thank you
Stewart.
for providing those comments. Just to keep us on track with the goals, what I'm hearing from the group in terms of proposed refinements in this goal area is around 3.5, updating the language to maintain and or improve current level of services. And then also in 3.4, adding language around in a transparent and timely manner to the goals. Are there other comments or changes on this in this goal area before we move to the next one?
Counselor Irvin?
So whether it's in this goal area or another, I think the concept of seeking out utility and other service providers that are utilized by residents that provide similar or improved services that are more reliable at a lower fee, so better value is a goal that the council we need. So beyond a rate study for maintaining an enterprise fund, being proactive to make sure that the ratepayers services in Cottage Grove are getting the best value.
I agree with
there's
that.
So there's a proposal to create a new goal. Is that or a new action here? Is that what I'm hearing, Councilor Irvin, around a study? But I'm not exactly sure.
What I thought the utility
that
rate
might
study
be.
was originally.
Add it to the utility, add it to 3.1. Explore all our options to make sure our ratepayers are getting
Mhm.
the best service and lowest rates.
And just to check in with Public Works Director, is that currently a part of the existing utility rate study, or something that would need to be specifically called out that would be considered like above and beyond what the current scope of a utility rate study would include?
So Mayor, under the current rate study, it's based on the city's services that we provide. So it's water, sewer, storm. It does not look into your power provider, your internet provider, your garbage provider. Those other services are through franchise fees. So that's not part of this rate study.
All right, is there, so what I'm hearing is that would not be included in that utility rate study. And so for that work to take place, there would have to be an additional goal. And another question that I would have is if that's typically something that, thinking about our ground rules around what is, currently within the scope of what the city typically does, if that's part of, looking at those costs for power and internet and those are all, they're utilities that are provided by, private enterprises. If the city has control over that, or if that's something that's realistic that the city could provide influence over.
So look at the possibility of a franchise rate study.
Yeah, I was thinking about, Public Works Director Fay, if you want to weigh in on if that's typically something that cities typically provide, that sort of a study.
Mayor, I'm not aware that is a service that the city provides. Take for instance, what my limited knowledge is around franchises, but we have, it looks like potentially let's just take on internet providers. We have 3 various different organizations that have a franchise agreement, and then they pay the city proceeds based on their revenue that they take in our community, and then they're available to provide that service to anybody in the city, and come under contract with individual property owners for that. We look at garbage service. It is one franchise available. This body has looked at it recently. I don't believe there's a second opportunity. It's a sole provider. When it comes to power, there are 2 power agencies or companies that provide power to the city of Cottage Grove. They have boundaries that have been adopted by the state of Oregon. So it would really necessitate changes to those boundaries through the Utility Commission to allow them to provide power in different locations. That's really outside the city's governance ability. It's more of a state piece. So I do not know exactly what the council is wanting us to study and try to create rates. Those are probably would be a good question or a good request of the state legislature or the Public Utility Commission who governs those bodies.
Counselor Settlemyer.
And kind of a nod back to transparency when we talk about all of these things. Is this where is 3.3 our nod to whatever we come up with here during financial stability, that we're committing to community engagement? Does that mean like education and invitation to help and that kind of thing?
I mean, staff can weigh in here, but the interpretation for community engagement is on the desired service levels. And so if it's basically having a conversation on, you know, what the desired levels of service are from the community members, and then having an, you know, education or awareness building around what that level of service costs the city to be able to provide that level of service. And then thinking about, okay, well, there's these different levels of service of, you know, whether we reduce services, we maintain, we improve our levels of services, what that looks like. And then those are all attached with different funding options. So it's like so if, you know, if the desired service level of the community is to maintain, this is what it costs to maintain current level of services. If there's a desire by the community to increase the level of services, then this is what that would cost. Or if there's not, you know, the ability to, you know, include additional funding, this would be the result in the reduction of service levels.
Thank you. I want to be conscientious to staff, so let's ask your questions, but let's go ahead and move on if we can.
I think so. Yeah, I think so too. Thank you, Mayor. I think we've had a lot of discussion around this one. I've captured a couple comments to make refinements. And so just yes, looking at time, let's continue to move forward. So let's see. So goal number 4, community growth. So the outcomes that council determined at the retreat were around creating more living wage jobs, having a vibrant economy with economic prosperity for all, increased tourism, celebrating local history and promoting arts and culture, and then also increasing housing availability and accessibility in the community. And so these are the 7 supporting objectives, with the additional 4.8 at the bottom. Let's see. Hold on. 4.8 isn't quite right. Sorry. I didn't update that one. I'll tell you verbally what it is. I apologize for the typo. But 4.1 is to complete the infrastructure for Project Sparrow to increase land available for industrial and residential development. 4.2, creating an urban renewal district, conduct a community cleanup event. Let's see, hold on. This one's aren't. Just a moment. I missed this one too. So 4.1, excuse me, and complete infrastructure for Project Sparrow to increase land available for industrial and residential development, excuse me. 4.2, and create an urban renewal district. And then 4.3 should read, excuse me, not the community cleanup event. It should be complete an economic opportunities analysis. And then 4.4 is attract businesses to Cottage Grove to reduce building vacancies and attract new development. 4.5, increase promotion of available city assets to attract conventions and meetings. 4.6 is to attract a destination hotel. 4.7, update housing needs analysis. And then 4.8, engage community partners to promote available housing assistance and programs. And then 4.9, complete downtown Main Street revitalization project. I apologize. These ones didn't get updated as I was updating my tables, but I can read through those again.
Push to the next slide. Yeah. Go ahead and go on to the next slide and we'll probably have to revisit because we have quite a few more.
Okay, and then the last one is under recreation. So this was a theme that came up from the discussion at the retreat and around outcomes of healthy and active community and opportunities for youth. And so the goal language is to promote a healthy and active community by expanding recreation opportunities, enhancing connectivity, and increasing engaging spaces for youth. And so 5.1 is to complete phase 1 of the Lincoln Middle School Path Project to increase connectivity. 5.2, work with community partners to raise funding and build a skate park and improve existing parks. 5.3, support the creation of a recreation district. 5.4 was a proposed addition, secure funding to complete improvements at the Bohemia Park. And then 5.5, proposed addition, support completion of the BMX track. So any comments around these objectives?
I think these probably also have quite a bit of conversation around them. So we may need to get these printouts and take them home and really go through them ourselves and come back.
You know, Your Honor, members of the council, nobody's being asked to make a final decision this evening. So we can certainly provide you with paper copies of these to review, and then we can come back at our next meeting and hopefully finalize them.
Does that sound good to everyone? Yes, thank you.
Yes, and so then I'll just go to my, and let's see. So with the, to the council vision is the idea is that this is a statement that captures all of the essence of all of your goals. And so I'll leave this here and then there can be further reflection and comments and you can send me comments if you would like, but the idea is around, you know, building a thriving, connected and resilient community rooted in financial sustainability or financial stability, sustainable growth and active engagement. And then the 5 team values that are, those came through the team building work that we did together at the retreat around accountability and transparency, integrity, collaboration, working together as one team, and dedication. And so there's some comments here under each of those, and just thinking about time, if you know, we can talk about these now, or we could just kind of let these sit and you can marinate on them, and we can have, there can be additional discussion at a later date. So I just want to check in with the group on how you'd like to proceed with the vision and the values discussion.
Councillor Hunk.
I'd like to get a printout of this so we can talk about it in the future.
We have a consensus on that? Yes. Thank you, Ashley, for all your hard work on this. Looks really good.
Yes, absolutely. And so just thinking about next steps, I will make updates to the language that we discussed tonight, and then we can send out these goals to the group, and then just figure out a time to have further discussion around any other refinements that need to be made, and around the vision and the values.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Right. All right. Item B, approval of storm drainage system master plan development project, air engineering service contract, Public Works Director, Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. So on November 25th, 2024, the City Council approved Resolution 2155, authorizing the approval of the loan agreement with the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality for $300,000 to fund updating the city's draft 2015 storm drainage system master plan. On January 24th, 2025, city staff posted a request for proposals for design and engineering services to solicit qualification proposals from engineering firms to develop the master plan. On March 5th, 2025, the request for qualifications closed and the city had received 2 proposals, one from Keller and Associates and the second from Carrillo Engineers, Inc. Staff reviewed and scored the proposals. Carrillo's proposal was chosen, and they were asked to submit a cost and scope of work for development of the master plan. Corilla's price and scope of work were reviewed and found to be within the budget and responsive to the RFQ criteria for the storm drainage systems master plan. Legal counsel prepared the attached contract, and both the DEQ and Carrillo have reviewed and approved the contract language. So the recommendation before you tonight is that the staff recommends the city council approve the contract with Carrillo Engineering, Inc. The storm drainage master plan. Suggested motion is move that the approval of the city council storm drainage system master plan development project with Carrillo Engineers, Inc. for $299,927 and direct the city manager to sign the contract. I'll share that I added an additional item here called the city council goals and the update of the storm drainage system capital improvement plan and review the system development fees to ensure current SDC fees being collected are adequate to fund the CIP, the capital improvement plan. I would share the cost of the engineering contract is $299,927 and will be paid for by the $300,000 DEQ funding awarded to the city for the development of the drainage system master plan. And one final reminder is that this is, there's no loan payment. This was all debt-free money that we're receiving from the DEQ.
Thank you. I'd entertain a motion. Counselor Urban.
I move approval of the City of Cottage Grove storm drainage system master plan development project with Carrillo Engineers, Inc. for $299,927.00 and direct the city manager to sign the contract.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a motion with a second. Any discussion? Counselor Urban.
Can you, I don't understand what the city council goal part is. Is that referencing how it relates to the?
Yeah. So Mayor Council Urban, so staff was under discussion that maybe we would have a line item in these future agenda memos that would tie our actions to the goal. And it's been a council goal to ensure that our capital improvement plan and our SDCs are in alignment. So I mentioned in this that the goal would be to have a updated capital improvement plan, and we'd be able to ensure that our current SDCs that we are collecting are adequate, or what they in some cases may be above, and they can be adjusted appropriately based on the updated plan.
Thank you. Any other questions? Counselor Merida?
Yeah, I was just thinking, I had seen some terms in there such as capacity risk and events, 10-year events, 20-year events, and thinking about the recent flooding, and this plan could potentially alleviate those dangers to our stormwater system. Is that correct?
Mayor Soulsby, Councilor Merity, that is correct. So the plan will be able to analyze. So typically, infrastructure is in this regards to storm drainage. They plan for 15-year events. That's the mark that they design the system to. As we experienced most recently, or last month, we had an event that my understanding was somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 75 years. And we experienced flooding in various different locations. This plan can, under what you read, would highlight those areas and may make suggestions as to what we can do to improve to reduce those events, especially in light of this plan is also supposed to take into account our changing climate, the severity of the events that we are experiencing. As you're aware, we've had some pretty serious ice storms, various different things. And so this plan will acknowledge those and make recommendations on how to kind of reduce those impacts of those events.
Thank you, Director Stewart.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Item C, approval of a change order number 1 and number 2 for the Cleveland Street Capital Improvement Project. Public Works Director, Mr. Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. So the city was awarded $3 million in Senate Bill 1530 to pay for the installation of water, sewer, and stormwater infrastructure. On January 27th, 2025, the city council awarded a contract to BAB Construction for $2,052,998.57 for the Cleveland Street Capital Improvement Project, which included street, water, sewer, and storm improvements to Cleveland Street and water, sewer, and storm infrastructure in the 4th Street. $1,386,979.60 of the contract price will be paid for by the state through Senate Bill 1530, leaving $1,613,020.40 of the appropriated remaining Senate Bill 1500 allocation to the city for water, sewer, and storm infrastructure. Branch Engineering has worked with BAB Construction on 2 change orders. The first is for $226,956.50 to add 2 3-inch conduits for future telecommunication and fiber lines and upgrade some of the water distribution line. The second would add Senate Bill 1530 Phase 2 work for additional sewer collection lines along the future streets of Kathleen Drive and South 3rd Street. The total cost of the second change order is $1,048,262.67. Branch is also working on price quotes for a pre-constructed sewer lift station that will complete utilizing the full $3 million of the Senate Bill 1530. Public contracting rules 137-049-0910 authorizes amendments to public improvement contracts in relevant part when, in subsection A, they are within the general scope of the original procurement. B, the field of competition and contractor selection would not likely have been affected by the contract modification. Factors to be considered in making that determination include similarities in work, project site, relative dollar values, differences in risk allocation, and whether the original procurement was accomplished through competitive bidding, competitive proposals, competitive quotes, sole sourcing, or emergency contract. The first change order of $226,956.50 is a redesign of the current approved work. It is therefore well within the contract's approved scope of work and original solicitation, so constitutes a standard change order. The second change order similarly is authorized by the above rule, particularly considering the factors listed under City Rule 137-49-0910, subsection 4, subsection B. This project was competitively bid. 5 responsive bids were received. It is unlikely that more bidders would have been submitted bids if the additional work to Kathleen Drive had been expressly included. Also, the invitation to bid identified the purpose of the project as improvement Cleveland Street and extend South 4th Street from Cleveland to Hayes and install public water, stormwater, wastewater into the project area to serve future developments. Kathleen Drive parallels Cleveland Avenue to the north and will intersect the extension of South 4th Street currently under contract, extending sewer collection lines along the future streets of Kathleen Drive and South 3rd Street is both within the purpose and the scope of the original invitation to bid, as well as in Senate Bill 1530, thus allowed under the above rule. The city council goal is approving the change orders, supports the city's goals to foster and encourage construction of low-income workforce and single-family housing while utilizing available state funding to do so. The recommendation this evening to council is staff recommends the city council approve the two change orders for the Cleveland Street Capital Improvement Project. And there's a suggested motion. And finally, the cost of the change orders will be paid for by the Business Oregon Senate Bill 1530 appropriation.
Do we have a motion? Counselor Urban.
Mayor, I move approval of change order number 1 for water and wastewater updates for $226,956.50. And change order number 2 for sewer mainline extensions in the future Kathleen Drive and South Third Street for $1,048,262.67 and direct the city manager to sign both change orders.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion with a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Item D, cancellation of city council meeting. City manager, Mr. Sauerwein.
Well, good evening, Your Honor, members of the City Council. We have a city council meeting scheduled for May 26th, which is Memorial Day. And so city staff is recommending that that meeting be canceled.
I'd entertain a motion. Counselor Irvin.
Move that we cancel that meeting. The one on May 26, 2025.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion with a second. Who seconded? Counselor Wilson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Concerns from council? Wow. Oh, Counselor Merryday.
In our goal discussion, several of our goals relate directly to the completion of the north entryway at Bohemia Park, including electronic reader board, and as a separate goal of completing the park construction. I asked the city manager and city recorder to provide you some information on this group, CORA. It's a coalition of recreation, athletics, and activities. It's 7 communities, one of which is our own, Cottage Grove. And each of these communities has a project in their community. So the letter looks like this, and it has a nice brochure attached that lists out the 7 projects. The one for Cottage Grove, of course, being adding the features that we had to drop because the funding of the grant and the bid did not align. So all of these communities have a need for a recreational or social hub. For instance, Oak Ridge is a member of the coalition. So we have a unique partnership between rural and urban communities. Each of these projects are shovel ready, have in large part raised the required funds and just need some finishing cost, and it's a one-time ask. And instead of each of us pursuing individually, Lund fundraising has helped guide us. It's a Cottage Grove product, Lund Financial, and they've been the key force behind the Armory. So the ask is to contact our legislators. We presented this idea when we went to Salem for a day in the Capitol, and we've made it. I was there on Friday, and we approached Speaker Fahey's office and Representative Nathanson, and both of them were receptive. And we've met with Prosansky and Fahey, and so we have a number of friends there, but the more they hear from us and from particularly our constituents on supporting this project would be very helpful in maybe perhaps securing these funds. They come from the capital construction group funds from the lottery. So we're not taking money from schools, from children, from any other operational cost. It's money raised specifically through the Oregon Lottery for this type of project. So any support you can give will help maybe succeed in getting 2 of our goals knocked off already. Thank you.
Director Stewart and I have both signed up to speak on Wednesday. Counselor Irvin.
Be interested if it would be helpful beyond the individual efforts, if we put a letter together from council as a whole saying we'd really like to see funding. For the media part, I'd be in favor of signing something like that.
There-
To that end. Wanted to give an update on the skate park. Found it on our draft goals. Hey. Progress. That's wonderful. The South Valley Athletics gave up one of their bingo times at the Brew Station on the 6th. And we had a successful drive there of about $122 and change. So that's in the account. So progress on that. We're also going to, Councilor Merriday and I attending the Yard Foundation. Remember, the Yard Foundation gave a $10,000 grant to the skate park fund to help facilitate plans, development plans, conceptual drawings, community engagement and support. So we'll probably give an update and recognition for that award. So very pleased to see that move forward. I wanted to address the dumpster at the Dairy Mart site. So I've contemplated this a number of times, and I would like to hear from the city, maybe suggestions. I mean, it's a public dumpster, so can you really prohibit people from bringing their household garbage if possible? That'd be great, but that's another enforcement thing. And maybe moving it inside of the fenced area is a solution. So that's available during the times of the stay, because that is a real problem. It gets overflowing. Try to load it up, it's full the next day. And so maybe that's a solution, but if the city wants to suggest something, there's room for improvement for sure. Also the messaging that's on the porta potties, I won't repeat here, is not pro, maybe it's gone now, definitely not pro community. But just keeping an eye on that, because that's right on our bike path. A lot of visitors from out of town come. Be nice to.
No. No, it's Chief. Or
I'll just share that. If we have items like this, if you alert me to them, I'll get staff to take care of it. This is the first I've heard of it. So if in the future you see something like this, please let me know immediately and we'll get our staff to take care of it. I was not aware of this situation. I don't go to that facility. So if in the future that's the case, we'll have it taken care of tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Councilor Settleman.
I'm just a little nervous. I've heard from you guys that it's tough to sort out budget season. I think I'm going to call it, in a way where there's time and all of that. And it sounds like it's approaching, and I haven't been told anything about when it's going to be. And I have some control of my schedule, but I sure would love to prioritize being around as that rolls out.
Mr. Sauerwein.
Well, good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. We will provide the council with a budget calendar showing when the meetings are, and understand that we have limited control over the dates for budget hearings, just because state law lays out specifically when we can advertise, when we can hold the budget meetings. But our goal is to provide you with the budgets as early as possible in the process we can. That's certainly something I'm working with Eric on. But I said, well, we will get you the meeting notices if I think they've already been sent out, but we'll make sure they get sent out again.
I believe it's May 18th.
May 13th.
13th.
May 13th.
May 13th.
Yeah, I say, I said, well, Mindy and I will make sure we get the budget, we get the notices out tomorrow.
Councilor Merriday.
Thank you, Mayor. I could recommend practice for each of you. there's 3 years of budget on this year's and 2 previous online, and spending time with it's broken down in a number of links, and the first few have a good breakdown of what the different parts are and a good explanation for the way the budget is laid out. Plus this, you can't really see it online, but it's a long, all the budget in one big piece that I've got copies at home that I could share with people it's great to see it all in one big long ticker tape. But that's a really good way to get your feet into it. So you're not doing that once you get the hot budget in your hands.
And understand that as we've done in the past, with my 1 year awesome experience, finance director and I are more than happy to meet with individual council members and walk through the budget with you one-on-one. It's you got to avoid public meeting law issues of having a group. But I said Bert did that and I did that last year with council members, and Eric and I will certainly provide that same opportunity for council members this year.
We have a quick time check, but I'm hoping that we're not going to go another half hour. But just to let you know, there is a time check. Counselor Wilson.
Yeah, on recently, actually, on March 31st, the school board met and approved the hiring of a new school superintendent. So Todd Miller is his name, 48 years old, 12 years from the Santiam Canyon School District up in Mill City, Oregon. He was one of approximately 20 candidates that were interviewed, and I think they got a good one. The people that I've talked to in and around him and his qualifications and his background, I think that the community is going to be very pleased with the hire of Mr. Miller. He's looking forward to working cooperatively with the council on the different goals of the community in and around the youth. So I'm excited about the prospect in the future.
Thank you, Counselor Wilson. Anyone else? No, I just want to say real quickly, if we do plan on doing a letter, there are 3 projects that the city is going after. A piece of that money, it's the armory, it's the ADA lift to replace the ramp, and then some repairs on River Road, and then Bohemia Park, of course. And with that, if there is nothing else, this meeting is now adjourned. Oh, I'm sorry. City manager, please.
Well, good evening. Good
I'm
evening.
getting out of here.
Look, the hour is late. I will be extremely brief. 2 quick items. I just want to let everybody know the Eugene Symphony has been scheduled for Monday, July 28th. And that is also a city council meeting night. So if everybody wants to go to the symphony like I do, we'll probably be trying to cancel that meeting. And then also to let everybody know that the spring citywide cleanup has been scheduled for Saturday, June 14th, and we'll provide additional information as we get closer to that date. That's about 2 months out.
All right. So now this meeting is adjourned. You can't.